2008 ISF here, and I have some issues with the rack and pinion that I'll be talking about in this video, and it pertains to the IS250 and the 350. So started making this grinding noise. It was really bad, and honestly, after a couple drives, it was a little bit dangerous to drive, and I don't recommend that you continue to drive it. There was not a power steering light on at all. I called the dealership, kind of talked to them a little bit, and they said that 9 times out of 10, their lead technician said this, 9 times out of 10, it fries the computer controller for the rack and pinion when something like this happens. But again, they didn't know the full story, and maybe in this particular situation that doesn't happen. I've seen some things where the computer has issues, but it seems like somebody pulled a wire or is really janky with it. And generally, I have to say that Lexus's modules are going to be pretty reliable. Mine was not failed. I disconnected everything and turned on the ignition, and the power steering light came on, reconnected everything, and I pulled one from the junkyard off a 250, IS250, an 07, I believe. And I believe it's the same, from my research, the same part number for the rack and pinion itself on the 250, the 350, and the ISF. The control module is different for them, at least between the IS250, 350 to the F. So, slapped on the 250. I'll go through a little bit of that and some tips and tricks on that real quick. And it worked. Within 3 minutes of the first drive, the vehicle stability control did come on, but there's a couple different popular videos where you cross pins on the OBD2, reset the system, relearn the system, and it shuts that light off. And it's been good for probably 100 miles, and I'll update it if it ever changes. I also just recently installed PPE headers, and the rack and pinion was rubbing on one of the headers. Never seen that on any of the forums, and it seems like it's super rare. This also does have a salvage title. Maybe something is just a little off in there that's causing it to rub. But anyway, I don't think that was the cause of my failure. I think it was the broken boot and moisture and rust gets inside. And if you don't have that, I wouldn't be too worried about it failing on you. From like 06 to 13, I believe. I'm not finding any good quality videos in the States of someone speaking clear English talking about this, but it's a real problem. So I had my power steering electronic rack and pinion seize up on me, and I've noticed that this boot is cut, but it's a lot more important on these electronic units that they don't see moisture. So obviously this got a bunch of moisture in there, and over time, I mean, I've got 174,000 miles, and with that, I don't think this would have ever failed if it weren't for this cut boot. These are like $1,600 new. Pulled one from the junkyard, and there's a lot of issues. If this is damaged, or this is damaged in any way, or the boot is damaged, avoid it. The only thing that was kind of wrong with this was the metal zip tie was a little bit off, and I think that happened in the junkyard when people were ripping out other parts, so I'm not too worried about that. It feels really good, like they're nice and greased up. To each his own, but I'm basically measured. I tried to get the steering wheel really centered before I pulled everything out, and then when I got this left boot off, I just measured, and it's just like basically 15 thousandths under 12 inches. And I'm just aligning it as best as I can to the exact same length. And then I took a picture of how many threads in were these nuts. So obviously it's not going to be perfect. I'm going to have to get it in alignment, but it'll get it pretty close. To get this plug off of here, it's kind of like a lever style. It's this guy right here. To get this off, this gray tab right here, you got to get in there with a pick and pull it out, kind of how it is right now. Pull it out, and then you can press on this side up and then start getting it out, and then the rest are just push the little tab and they'll come out. But honestly, pretty straightforward. This isn't really a hard job at all. You got a 12 millimeter for your rack and pinion, and then it's going to be a whole ordeal. I know the power steering is going to come on, and the dealership said that 9 times out of 10 when these go out, it basically fries the computer, which I find it hard to believe. So I'll have to see. It seems like you can relearn it based on a couple things online, but I will see if I can do that.